Welcome to Danbury Dems. My name is John Gogliettino. I'm your host. This evening we're going to we got an old friend of the show here.
The oldest friend.
Old friend of the different shows I do, but I think this is actually your first time on
this particular one.
On this particular show.
Okay, good.
So, but an old but new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bob Godfrey, the 110th District, and we're going to be talking about what's been going on in Hartford, part two, because we covered some stuff in part one. And so this is the second time. Very interesting topic of the green jobs that we have in Connecticut and a few other things. So hopefully you'll stay tuned and watch an interesting program. So welcome once again.
Thank you for having me, John. Okay. I so appreciate this.
All
and
right.
It's fun.
Yeah, and it's on a different night, so maybe you got different audience somewhat.
Yes. Gosh.
You could identify, how did you become a state representative? How'd you work your way up?
It's not an unusual story. When I got out of the Navy, I came back to Danbury. It's my hometown. And my mother, Rita Godfrey, was very much involved with local government. Betty Crushington was
city clerk,
running, actually, for the first time, one of the women pioneers in elected offices in Danbury. And so I kind of got pulled into that. I came home looking for like a social group to kind of mingle with, and I wound up mingling with the Democratic Party.
All right.
And we helped, God, this is so long ago, we helped Charlie Dusabella get elected mayor. He actually put me on one of the local commissions.
Right.
I wound up running a state senate campaign back in 1976 or so, and wound up working in Hartford as a committee clerk. And that's when I got the bug to be involved in government on the state level.
Be
and
involved
here I
yourself.
am, all these many years later.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I did 2.5 terms on the city council.
Right.
And in that time, I went to law school and got admitted to the bar and worked at a bank.
You worked for a bank, and you were also Chamber of Commerce for a while.
And then I worked for the Chamber of Commerce. I helped run that. I was basically their lobbyist. So.
Yeah. So you did a smattering of different things.
And a little of that. And now I've been over 30 years in the General Assembly as a member.
Time goes by before you know it.
Doesn't it?
And there you're there.
I look in the mirror and see my grandfather staring back at me in the morning now.
I say, what happened to that 20-year-old?
Yeah, right. There's in here somewhere.
So anyway, protecting our planet.
Yeah.
Under the theme of protecting our planet and the green jobs and net metering.
Net metering. Yeah,
what does that mean?
Net metering, you put solar on your house, it generates more electricity than you use. You can ship it back and basically sell it to the
back to the
electric
utility
company, and that's called net metering.
Oh.
I don't know why, but
you don't catch it.
It's the net amount that the meter spins backwards.
Oh.
Yeah. In a good construction.
I thought it had something to do with butterflies at first.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
But
they come up with crazy ideas.
So there's something new with that.
It's a really good idea. We did a really good job in energy and the environment this year. Everybody got talking about the budget and tolls and a whole bunch of other stuff, and it kind of got buried. But it was really, really good. And anecdotally, the new chair of our energy committee this year was Representative David Arcani from right here from Danbury, and I talked to him both before, during, and after the session, and he realized what a complex issue this is. And he was on a very long, difficult learning curve, did a great job, really stepped up to the mark, and brought in a series of pieces of legislation that really are going to make the state better, both for the environment and for the economy. Green jobs, it's the green economy. It's the opportunities that things like solar and wind power bring to these new industries that are in building mode. that create those jobs, and they're good-paying jobs, and they're solid jobs. And, we're looking for new ideas.
When you're developing a green building, I'm
Yes.
looking at some of you need people to do the work.
Who knows how?
So that know, so that you bring in the person that knows how to do it, and maybe they show 3 other people. Now you've created 3 other jobs.
Yeah, and it's especially interesting here in Danbury, John. Henry Abbott Technical School, one of my favorite places. It's a state school. Obviously are teaching all the building crafts. It's carpentry and HVAC and everything in between, electrical, plumbing. The graduates of those programs have jobs waiting for them because they're learning this stuff now, and they're getting hired by people our age who have been in the business a long time, to whom this is all brand new. But these kids come out of here ready and knowing how to install solar, how to install a heat sink for heating and for hot water. And so they're very much in demand. And those are good paying jobs. Those are jobs, they're careers really. They're not just jobs, they're careers that mean you're going to be able to raise a family, you're going to be able to have your own house, you're going to have the American dream, working with your hands with skills that unfortunately too few people have anymore. And it's just adding the opportunities here. Certainly for those who are doing construction in the private sector, but the state and local governments have to get into the green building mode. We need to cut down on our costs for heat and electricity. And many of these innovative ideas that we've been working on, that David's been working on, will be doing exactly that and providing, in the 19th century, it may have been having jobs that made Danbury, but Connecticut's going to be looking for these relatively high tech compared to what you and I grew up being used to. And very well-paying jobs. You won't necessarily need a PhD, but you're going to need to have the job skills, the technical skills that are make you ready to be part of this. And there's other, there's big things and there's little things in this whole big issue. The net metering thing is very big, but
it also conserves water.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not just the electric;
right.
it's the water and so you know where to put the insulation on the building. You may have the roof covered, you have the side of the building covered, but you don't have the windows covered.
Exactly.
Things like that.
I'm a big fan of all of the do-it-yourself construction shows on television. Not that I do a lot. I just like to watch them.
Yeah.
And watching just especially they're bringing young people on as apprentices. It's fascinating. And a great boon for the future. Absolutely. Knowing all of that stuff. And there's things we're going to do. We have to, at the state capitol, as we've been doing repaving, we've been much more environmentally friendly. So the water doesn't just run off, it soaks in. Little things like that. Putting in better lighting, putting in better landscaping.
For example, I redid the lighting in the kitchen, which lasts like 5 times, 10 times longer. The electric
lighting,
Yeah.
Oh, I put in a new dryer in my house, and I was shocked how my electric bill dropped because it was much more energy efficient. It was just so all of those jobs, all of those career opportunities are there, and it cleans up the environment and reduces greenhouse gases. I do believe in climate change. It's happening and it's hurting us.
So all this will go a long way if every individual does their part.
Yeah. Because another big piece of this is the offshore wind that we're looking at. We don't have, Connecticut doesn't have a steep topography. We have a few dams, but the water isn't high enough to make it a really big source of renewable power. But we've got Long Island Sound and, believe it or not, a little bit of the Atlantic over at the eastern end of the state, where we can put up turbine windmills
Yeah.
and generate enormous amounts of electricity, which we need more and more. You and I are at home with computers and televisions and refrigerators and everything else that we use are demanding a lot more electricity than we used to.
So if it cuts back 15-20% of the cost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you're going to see that in your pocket. You're going to see your electric bill drop as these things come online over the next bunch of years. We can reduce the energy consumption by 40% off of the fossil fuel traditional, and then here we had another bunch of good-paying jobs. Just putting these things up, just making sure that they are maintained. It's going to be quite the uptick in employment in Connecticut, and we're committed to getting those jobs to be filled by people from Connecticut, not by people from elsewhere. So, those are the big things we're doing for the environment and the energy. We banned fracking waste. Not that there's any oil or any other kind of natural resource of that nature in Connecticut. And then,
So now we're talking about putting solar energy
on
state property, like right next to a highway.
Yes, the state owns quite a bit of property.
Like all the land along the highways
along
as
the
you traffic.
highways.
So
Along
if you have a good stretch, why just
Why
leave
not
it barren?
do something?
Yeah.
If you've been over to the west side campus of Western Connecticut State University anytime recently, as you're going up that driveway, on the east side of the driveway, pointing west, they have a solar array.
Right.
Well, why can't we put that on the existing land?
Right.
Alongside the highways, for example, up near the airports, because the airports are state airports,
Right.
down in the ports, and generate very clean, very up to date.
And it cuts the overall bill for all the state housing
and the air is
plants.
cleaner.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the opportunities and the promise for the future just astound me.
And we were talking about the wind and up to 2,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
The wind power.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's huge.
Now
That's
we're not.
huge.
We don't have any fracking here, but
No.
you're
Yeah, there was this kind of push to ban fracking waste. Fracking, I think, is becoming a huge environmental problem. We
But
don't
it's
see
not-
much of it in Connecticut, though.
There's nothing in New York and there's nothing in Massachusetts.
No, there's nothing much this side of
Maybe in
Mississippi or
Pennsylvania there
something.
is.
Yeah, that's about. And they're having big debates down there.
Right.
My friends in their legislature are
Now the
are trying to
plastic
deal with it.
bags
Oh,
are banned.
plastic bags.
They were
driving
banned
me crazy.
for the July 1st of 2020.
220. We banned them.
But
we're
per
talking,
people, the stores are already, you can't get them anymore. Yeah.
This is what drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm for banning the plastic bags. They're bad for the environment. They're bad for animals.
They're ending
like
up in the ocean.
They're ending
Yeah.
up in the ocean. There's a huge pile of it in the Pacific. There's another huge pile of it in the Atlantic. We should get out there and clean that up. It's killing off wildlife, turtles and whales and everything in between. So we need to start banning them. So I pushed for the ban. And along comes somebody who has this bright idea, okay, we'll ban them as of 2020, July, but we'll put a 10-cent tax on them. Meantime, I'm going, well, this is pretty dumb. But it happened. That's how we were able to get to the ban. And so what has happened? Well, the stores first took away the plastic bags. I'm a ShopRite or
Well, they're getting
Stop and Shop.
10 cents on the bags.
And then they're charging, not the state, and it's not a tax, and it's not going to the general fund. They're charging you 10 cents a piece for paper bags.
They're probably making a nickel on it.
No kidding. It sticks in my craw. It really
But
does.
see, that way they got rid of the bags, the plastic bags.
Yeah. There's a dark cloud there every silver lining, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's an example of how someone else is.
Capitalism.
Yeah, yes. But anyway, we got rid of the plastic bags that way.
And we also worked very hard. We got to ban styrofoam. And that actually passed the House this year, but the Senate didn't take it up. So that's something we'll have to come back.
Nobody wants styrofoam.
It's
It's
just
like you can't recycle it. You can't do anything with it.
Uranium has a shorter half-life than styrofoam, I swear. But we couldn't get the Senate to even take it up for a vote. And kind of segueing into our next topic on education, the House, after a bitter and long debate, wanted to require that climate change be part of the curriculum in our public schools. And again, it passed the House overwhelmingly with bipartisan support, but the Senate didn't take that up. So those are two things, both dealing with the environment and dealing with education, that we'll need to take up in the regular session that begins next February.
Now, education is
Yes.
our next heading, and you're expanding students' outlook because I guess they're too consumed with the stuff on the internet.
On the internet,
we got to open up their
devices.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's most disturbed me over the last bunch of years is you only get taught what's on the test. And so you wound up, I actually had a small business owner come to me and said, so you're graduating a bunch of people that I can't hire because all they know how to do is take a standardized test. I'm going, ooh, that's kind of cold, but there's a ring of truth in there. So I think that education is more than reading, writing, and arithmetic and taking tests. It is also about how you see yourself, how you see your community, how you see the world, and how to think critically. And none of that can be on a test. So
when we got rid of history and social
civics,
sciences,
yeah.
and
Right.
we put civics and we just test certain things.
Yeah.
But we got rid of history.
Right.
You got rid of the Holocaust. That never happened.
Oh, I
you know.
I
So
know.
So
That's why we've had to go back.
We're talking about putting the study of the
Yeah,
Holocaust in there
yeah.
because for years it's been
Yeah.
missing out of the
It
curriculum.
has,
And
it
there's people that
has.
say, "Oh, it never happened."
Yeah.
Why are they saying it? Because nobody ever studies it.
Yeah, right. They
Except
don't see the evidence.
An old historian myself, I studied it, but I think actually, I don't know, it was 5 years later,
Yeah, right.
they got rid of history.
Right. It's just, and so there were a group of certainly because it is the 21st century. We're for the first time we're requiring computer science.
Yeah.
Duh. That should have happened
That should have
2
been,
decades ago.
That should happen
We've added
30 years ago.
Yeah, the study of the Holocaust, the horrors of genocide, African American studies, because
Latino studies.
I'm a big fan of Henry Louis Gates Jr.
Yeah.
I think he has done more to woke America than any other single person in the last few years. But we have turned our back on important pieces of American history: slavery, African American studies, Latino studies. Not because it's some kind of a fad, but because it's an integral part of the weft and the weave of American history. And to leave that out is just wrong because it gives kids, we're talking about students in public schools, a rather awkward and just a bad, incomplete, I think is the best word, view of what's gone before. You know, the past is prologue. I think it's very important that these things, all of which are resonating in current events, and not just here, but around the world, kids need to grow up understanding that. I mean, you and I grew up in the Cold War era. I remember vividly the Cuba Missile Crisis. We thought the bombs were going to be wiping us out
Come
any
out
minute.
and look at look at the sky as to where the missiles are coming.
Yeah, it was frightening. But we need to bring everybody coming through our public school system up to speed on these very important parts of history and of science. It's just time.
Yeah. Let's bring back history, and not just certain things, But
Everything.
if you have those studies,
Yeah.
you're going to say, hey, this has happened. They would recognize that the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment were passed between 1865
Yep.
and 1868.
Yep.
And we still, over 100 years later, are still not 100%. They're not implemented or not working as well as they should be.
There's been some studies of the Civil War amendments, they're called, as you know.
Yeah.
There's been some recent studies of the effect of that to the point where it was a second American Revolution that changed the kind of Roman best men view of the Founding Fathers as a much more egalitarian, a much more common folk, a much more Abraham Lincoln approach to civic interaction and government. And it's obviously had its up and downs, which has to be taught. Reconstruction has been glossed over, I think, how it affected the world wars. That's missing, and that's a shame. So I think we need to start taking, we need to be accountable to ourselves for our own history.
Time is flying again.
Oh.
Now we got debt-free community.
Yeah. You know, I'm a big fan, as I've kind of been saying, people need skills other than PhDs. And one of the best places to get them, because you do need more than high school, are the community colleges, including Naugatuck Valley right here in Danbury. And most of the students there are getting significant financial aid. But we said, let's just go the last, and it's relatively small step, and just make them debt-free. The cost of education to the students is out of control. There's this huge national problem that's being ignored in Washington along with a lot of other things. But it's time we invested in our kids, because to do that is to invest in our future. These are the people that are going to be taking care of us in the nursing homes, you know, that kind of thing.
And if they're working and getting a significant income, then if they're
yes.
educated, then the employer doesn't have to educate.
Exactly. Exactly.
And when you have at least 2-year degree.
And they're training for careers, not for jobs.
Right.
That's one of my favorite themes.
All right, so that sums that up. We've got like 4 minutes.
Let's talk about money.
Okay.
School money, just for a moment.
Okay.
Back as far as 1990, I think I brought back like $11 million to the city of Danbury.
From the state?
From the state.
Appropriation.
This is ECS and other kinds of money that's appropriate, Alliance School District, all this kind of stuff. And every year I've increased it. And this year we got a huge increase to the point that over the 2 years in the biennium, the city of Danbury will get just under $73 million from the state of Connecticut. $35 million in the current fiscal year, 37, almost 38 in the next fiscal year. And this is a big deal. And then I hear about the overcrowding and the lack of money, and that Danbury has descended from being 90th in support for public schools in the state out of the 169 towns to dead last. And then I hear too many, it's the state's fault. No, it's not.
37 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I keep bringing back more and more and more and more every year. There's $5 million more over last year for this biennium.
So what you're saying is the Board of Education, along with the Common Council, are not really spending it?
They haven't sufficiently supported education in this city. And it's sad, it's tragic, and it's just hurting kids going through the system. And frankly, John, you've dabbled. It hurts real estate prices, folks.
Exactly.
You got a bad school system, and we don't have a bad school system. We have an overcrowded, underfunded school system. But if people are afraid of that, they're not going to want to move here.
And then
price of your house will go down.
Housing prices go down.
Yeah, because one of the first people who are moving, one of the first questions they ask if they have a family is, what's the school system like? And if the answer comes back, oh, it's overcrowded and underfunded, yeah, they're not going to want to move here. And that's going to depress prices all around. And it hurts the kids. We got some fabulous teachers in the public school system in Danbury. They don't have the resources that they should have. Beginning of the school year, there weren't enough desks for each student, for students in the high school. And it's just time to push the underfunding away, start making these investments in our kids for the future of Danbury and Western Connecticut.
We got about 2 minutes. We got the opioid, and I wanted to give you and also if you want to mention your website or telephone number and email if you want.
The opioid crisis is becoming a very, very big deal. In October, we did a forum here in Danbury. All of my colleagues from the state legislature, with our Attorney General William Tong, who is suing the pants off of big pharmacy companies and the Sackler family for billions of dollars in reparations for the opioid crisis, and more Godspeed to him.
40 lives in Danbury alone.
Between about 2015 to 2017. I don't even have the 2018 numbers available yet.
So there's a
shame.
A number of laws that are being worked on to combat this crisis.
We have tried to deal with overprescription. We've tightened up the way doctors can prescribe. Narcan, which is the antidote for a lot of the opioid overdoses.
They're practically waving goodbye. Could you give your give your email and?
I'll have to come again, John.
Yeah, well, okay.
Bob.Godfrey at cga.ct.gov and 800-842-1902.
All right, thank you for coming on the show. And thanks to the viewers for tuning in to the Dems. And have a good night. We'll see you next week.